Welcome. This is the Enlightenment Show, and I'm your host, Laurie Schoenfeld. This is where Chicken Soup for the Soul meets the artist way with Nancy Drew. Our guest tonight is Jill Tucker, author of Bright Ones. We're going to be chatting with her today all about her new release and something that she's afraid of, but working to embrace. Hello, Jill. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I am very excited to have your book out in the world. It's been out for 2 weeks now.
Yeah, exactly. 2 weeks and like 2 days or something. Who's counting, right?
How are you feeling with the new adventure being a debut author?
I at first it was kind of like gut wrenching a little bit. Like, is it going to be hated? Is it going to be loved? And I still have a lot of that like fear that it won't go anywhere, or that people won't love it, or that it won't catch on. But I think what I'm finding is that I'm feeling really so grateful for the opportunity to kind of like enter the discussion of authors. Like, I'm now in the discussion. I've kind of entered authorship, which I think feels amazing. It's a dream come true. So I'm super excited about that. And to have something physical to hold after spending so long obsessing over this story, and now it's out into the world. So that's such a relief.
And I want to take a moment too and just show for all of our viewers, this is a beautiful, beautiful cover. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I read it before it was released, but the cover was just so stunning and shocking. Tell us a little bit about that process too.
So I actually worked with a friend of mine, Melissa Stone. I was her first book cover ever. So that's the amazing part, is that it's like she's never done this before. And so she had just, taken some courses on, cover design and just graphic design, and offered to do mine. So I had this whole, pin board on Pinterest, all about all the flowers that I loved, and then the skulls, and I wanted it to feel moody, and I wanted it to be really edgy. And I explained all of that to her, and then showed her the entire, mood board, and she like nailed it. It was like the first moment she like showed it to me. Of course, we had a couple of tweaks here and there. But when she showed me this final one, I just like started crying. I was like, that's exactly what I was hoping for. It looks like she reached into my brain and like made it reality. And so it was such an amazing experience to have somebody to see what is in your head and make it a real thing.
Mm-hmm. 2 thumbs up on the cover. Good job.
Yeah.
Can you share with our listeners and viewers, Jill, what Bright Ones is all about?
This is always the hardest question, because it's like I have the entire story in my head. I'm like, how do I boil this down? Okay, so this is the best chance or the best try I've got. So it's a coming of age YA urban fantasy about a girl named Kiri. Kiri is a senior in high school, and she's sort of struggling with her identity and just being able to, or not being able to connect with her peers, not just because she's got social anxiety, but also because she lights up. She's got this ability of light. And her mom has always kind of treated it like it was something to be hidden and something to be afraid of. And so she's never been able to connect with people her age, with her friends. She's kind of always felt on the outside. And she's also a kind of a science nerd, which kind of sets her apart too, because she's incredibly intelligent and brilliant. And then one night after a party with friends, her family is murdered by a man made of shadows. And he tries to, of course, murder her as well. And she narrowly escapes with her life by using her own powers. And so now we're being thrust into this world of like shadows and like murder and intrigue. And she learns that she's not actually the only person on planet Earth that has this ability to manipulate and control light. There's an entire society of light that is dedicated to eradicating darkness from the earth in the form of tyranny and depression and darkness, everything that darkness encapsulates. And so she actually finds out that this is a 7,000-year-old battle, and they're in the very final battle to see, who's going to inherit the earth. It's going to be the darkness or the light. And she finds that she's like sort of in the center of that battle. And in the middle of all that comes a really handsome gray character boy who, of course, she is instantly drawn to, but he's got his own issues. And so we have a lot of complexity to that relationship. And the fact that they are almost chemically or scientifically drawn together as sort of a positive and negative force that kind of like cannot be anything but drawn to each other. So it's a really fun kind of almost, we're leading kind of to the end of the world type story.
Mm-hmm. It's a very fast-paced. Every chapter, I felt like I was on the edge of my seat, just wanting to get to the next chapter. And then when you brought in I like how you mentioned that, Jill, like the scientific connection between light and dark. Because you get that feel, but that connection is so magnetic that it's hard for the reader also to put the book down, because you also feel that pull with the characters of why are they so connected, which you did brilliantly.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I took a lot of time kind of like trying to like study light and dark and what they can do. And so I wanted it to feel realistic, and then I wanted it to feel something that you can connect with.
Mm-hmm. When did you first get the idea for this book?
So I love this story. I tell my students this story all the time, because originally when I was a little girl, I was going to be the next Britney Spears. I was all about singing, and I never considered myself to be really an artistic person, even though singing is a form of art. So I never considered like creative writing at all. I didn't do it in high school. I read a lot of books with my dad. We used to read books like John Grisham, things that I don't write at all. And so I actually just went into school for English, and I was kind of expecting to be an editor. I used to always say, I'm going to let somebody else write the book and I'll edit it, you know? And then I became a mom, and all the things happened with being a mom and like being a wife and stuff. And then like one night I had this amazing dream, and it was so realistic, about this girl being chased through foreign streets. She had this shadowy figure behind her, and it was chasing her through these darkened streets. And in the end, it was kind of a complex plot that kind of played through my mind all night long in this realistic, really thrilling kind of movie format. This girl ends up saving herself. There are other people involved that are trying to save her, but she ends up saving herself with this like ability she didn't even know she had. And I just kept like thinking through all of these characters as I was sleeping. And by the time I woke up and put my feet on the ground, I was an author that day forward. I never wanted to do anything else. I had to tell Kiri's story, and it's like I was obsessed with writing, and I never had been before. So it almost feels like a calling, I guess you could say, sort of like divine intervention. And even from then on, like stories have appeared in my mind, almost like a suggestion, like, would you like to write me? And they'll come fully formed, like the characters are fully formed as if they've always existed. And so it's been really kind of fun to go on this adventure of discovering stories that almost feel like they're not my own, but they're given to me to express, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Going into that, tell us about the writing process with Bright Ones.
So I had the initial story in my head, but I wanted the plot to feel very cinematic and very exciting, because I love those end of the world stories, and I love really kind of like thrilling stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. So I wanted to find something. I love history, and I love ancient documents, and I love like, you know, all of that like Dan Brown type feel. I love Dan Brown's books. So what I do is I spend months upon months just researching. I found the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was kind of just by chance as I was going through like all the different, you know, end of world scenarios that you might have. I found a document, which I think is so amazing. It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's called the War Scroll. And so I did a lot of research on that, and some academics actually believe that it's kind of an end of the world story. And I used that for my plot. So I just dropped my characters and that sort of that storyline that I was getting, and I put it within this really ancient scroll that they found, you know, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and kind of formulated my plot that way. And then I also just like studied the Enlightenment period, which is funny that your show is called the Enlightenment Show, right? Because I obsessed over the Enlightenment era, especially with Paris, you know. And then just like did a whole bunch of, you know, research on like the Parthenon and all those kinds of places, and, you know, authors from that time period. So that's my favorite part, is the research.
Kiri is a very strong female character that went through quite a bit in a short period of time. What drew you most to her character?
So like I said, they kind of come fully formed, and sometimes the characters will tell me what happens to them. I know that sounds like I'm a crazy person, like I have ghosts in my head. I almost feel like she chose me because I probably wouldn't have been able to create her on my own. I had to tweak her character a little bit, because at first she was too perfect, she was too nice, and I had to give her some flaws and stuff. But I honestly feel like Kiri chose me to tell her story. And so I think I'm just drawn to her because she was like the character that got me into the game, and she's sort of like my daughter. I created her and gave birth to her almost, you know, and so I just feel like she's mine. She's my own, and so I feel a really deep connection to her just because in the creation process has really made me love her, and to have her be sort of nerdy and kind of a pacifist, but being thrust into a situation where she doesn't have the choice. She kind of has to, you know, defend herself and defend the people that she loves, and to have her do that with such strength and such like bravery, I think that's what I really love about her as well.
I love how you just said that she chose you, because there's something really magical in that creative moment of like having that connection with your character, that they chose you. And now you're going on this journey along with them wherever they go, but you're together.
Yeah, you never do it alone. Yeah, which sounds like schizophrenia or something, but it's true, like these characters become real in your mind because they're so in depth and they have backstories. They're just like any other human in that way. And so they do become more realistic, and you go on it with them. So that's kind of really fun.
As you were writing Bright Ones, were you surprised at all about Luca and Curie's relationship and how that developed?
So originally, obviously, I had to have like a love interest. I don't read books without a love interest, period. Like if it doesn't have romance, I'm not in. I don't care. Like I will put it down. It would have to be a very, very good book for me to read without like a love interest. And so I always had that in my mind. But just like I said, Curie sort of like was fully formed. Luca's story, I think, surprised me because he has so much trauma. And because he's such a complex character, he started to become more complex as they went along. And so their relationship is very complex. And it's in book 2, of course, we get a little bit further in that relationship, but he's got a lot of back trauma and a lot of connections. Yeah, I'm super excited about that. He gets his own perspective in book 2. So we start off from his perspective, and we get more deep into his the trauma that he has, because he's part light and he also has shadows that start to come out in him from him. And so he's a gray character. And what's really fun is that we all kind of have a bit of gray in us. And I love being able to explore that with Luca. He's a good guy with really horrible, you know, backstory and did horrible things. And so it's kind of a redemption moment, and also acknowledging that there's light and dark in all of us instead of just all light and all dark.
Bright Ones is a YA dark fantasy. What do you love about dark fantasies?
So I've always been drawn to, like, I don't know, edgy things. I love like with my the cover, I love the skull on that. For some reason, I love skulls. I don't know why. I don't love death necessarily, but I love edgy things. And so I'm just drawn to like things that are just rich, full of light and dark, but just sort of edgy. And so that's what I like to read. So I think that just came naturally to me, that I just love that edge. And I'm like always been a fan of Halloween, and always just like, you know, kind of like love to be scared. And so I think that just came naturally.
So I'm thinking about your cover right now, and I think so interesting with what you said with the light and the dark, how you like, there's so much gray, but you have on your cover a skull with flowers. And so it's like that dynamic too of like death, but also growth, and like all the stages in between too.
Yeah. And there is a lot of death. And then there's a lot of, like, I feel like we start off with death, and she has to sort of come back from that. She has an emotional death as well. And then we see her grow. I think that the, like, just putting dead things next to be like some very like vibrant, beautiful things for me is very stirring. Because, you know, we have, you know, people die every day and born every day. It's almost like they live so closely together. And I think it can be a really beautiful thing. So it's a lot of like this fun irony, and like the contrast between the two, I think is really beautiful.
I'm not going to give any spoilers for those that are listening, because you have to read Bright Ones, but that emotional death, oh man, I held my chest multiple times sitting with her, and I got the feels and the tears, as there's a lot of very relatable emotions through the emotional death that she experiences with what's important to her.
Yeah. And I really did pour, like, I have a vivid imagination. Obviously, I'm a writer. And so when I was a little girl, it's funny because I used to imagine, what would it be like if my mom died? I don't know why I used to like dream about that, but I just had this like overwhelming fear, and it would make me cry, you know, just even thinking about what it'd be like to lose a mom. And when my grandpa died, so that scene at the funeral, kind of in the beginning, it's not really any spoilers because that's, something we put on the back of the book that they're dead. But I had this moment at my grandpa's funeral where I was just so upset that they were putting him in the ground. And I'm like, but he can't come back out of there. And just trying to reason through the finality of death and just having that person that you loved be in the earth and be in the darkness forever. It was just terrifying for me because they put dirt on top of him. I'm like, well, you can't come back out of that. And so it's like that moment for me, it was really emotional writing every time. I would cry every time because it's really how I felt in moments where like somebody I cared about was buried, like how difficult that moment was.
Mm-hmm. What would you say, Jill, you learned the most about yourself as you were writing Bright Ones?
It's interesting because I don't like talk about my emotions very much, not a whole lot, because I'm kind of I don't know. I get along better with boys than I do with girls simply because I'm just not a very emotional person. So what I found is that I pour all the things that are important to me spiritually and logically and all the things that I believe. I found that I've put it into my book. And so it's what's really fun is just watching, like I've been going through Shadow Man, which is book 2. That one's fully done. It just needs to be edited and it needs to be put out. But just seeing the progression of me from 2015 to where I am today, I can see that progression in my belief systems and just like just trusting myself and being able to grow as a person has all kind of been mirrored into Carrie's experience and her own growth. And just all the things that are kind of evolving in the plot and all the just the lessons that my characters are learning are sort of like the lessons that I'm learning as I grow. And so it's been fun to see myself. It's almost like my character arc is Carrie's character arc. Like we're going through it together. And so that's been really kind of fun just to see like where my belief system stopped popping up. I didn't mean to do that, but it like happened. So it's kind of fun to kind of identify those little pieces of myself and my belief system throughout the plot.
I love that so much, Jill, because just going and thinking about, my own writing journey, there are things 10 years ago I would not have been able to write that I can write now. But there's things 10 years ago that I was very able to write that was fresh, that now I'm like, okay, we've been there, done that, moved past that lesson. And now it's not fresh in the same way that I could write organically 10 years ago.
Yeah. So, yeah. Like we're different people now. Yeah.
Yeah. You are a teacher that teaches creative writing classes to high school students. How has teaching helped you to be able to write for that age group?
Honestly, the longer I'm with these kids, the more I'm talking about progression, but I actually digress. It's terrible. I was even talking to them today. I'm like, I listen to myself talk sometimes and I'm like, Jill, you are 40-year-old adults. Stop it. Like I told my colleagues one time, I'm like, we got a skirt. And they looked at me like I was insane. I'm like, I'm sorry. I apologize for the teen talk. But it like just, I'm around them so much. My kids are teenagers too. I have an 18 and then a 17 and a 15-year-old. And so like almost everybody I know is a teenager. I have a couple of adults in my life, but it's like they rule everything. And so I'm starting to realize that I even talk like a teenager. And so that has helped me to like really kind of infuse a teen voice into my YA. And so I think it's a little bit more authentic because I feel like, I can do that well. I can take on the voice of teenagers because I don't even mean to do it and I shouldn't do it, but it happens because they talk at me all day long and I pick things up. So it helps a lot.
That environment, yeah.
And it's really fun to teach teenagers. They're totally wacky. So I teach creative writing to teenagers, which is you get into their psyche, just like I said, like that kind of stuff shows up, the things that I believe and the things that are inside my mind and my soul show up in my writing. And the same thing with my teenagers, and they are wacky. It's so fun to see like wacky teenagers and their beliefs and the things that they think and do show up in their writing. And we have the most fun just going through some of the most insane, ridiculous, and sometimes terrifying and sometimes heartbreaking stories that they come up with. And it's just entertaining and soul feeling for me every day that they get to tell their stories to me and I just get to absorb it. So it's been a lot of fun.
What do you think, Jill, is something that you're afraid of, but that you're working to embrace?
I mean, obviously darkness. Anything having to do with darkness, that's the whole point of the book is kind of like addressing my fear of the darkness. But for right now, I think the the thing I'm dealing with the most right now is just the fear of rejection, and also the fear of failure, because I just feel like this book needs to be out there in the world. I've always felt like it was impertinent. I mean, it was important for me to put it out. Like, that was my job, is to write this book and put it out. And now my fear is will it be accepted by the public? Will anybody like it? Will it go anywhere? Because I wanted to be traditionally published originally, and now I'm self-published because the traditionally published, it just didn't work out for me, which I'm actually kind of glad now. But I have that fear that I'll do something to mess it up and my book will fail because of my inexperience. And so I think that's my biggest fear right now.
Mm-hmm. Bright ones for your next book club or just for yourself, go and pick this up because it really is an entertaining and wonderful read. There are a lot of lines in here that were very profound that I sat with multiple times, which is always very fun to have those poetic pieces, Jill, that just sit with you longer.
Yeah.
You definitely have quite a few of those in there that were just beautifully written.
Thank you.
We're going to take it to the inner child question segment. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. First question, what kind of adventures did you enjoy as a kid?
So my favorite thing to do was just go in the backyard with my friends. So I had a friend named Emily and a friend named Leah, and they lived kind of like in this little, like almost like a triangle that we lived in. And we would spend every single minute outside in the trees and in the dirt. I love to eat dirt. I love to play the dirt. I was a dirt girl. So I would just love to be in the trees, and we would just make up adventures in our minds and just like have these rich worlds, which of course now I know I was a writer from the beginning. I just didn't identify until late. But we would just have so much fun in our backyards, just playing in the trees. That was my favorite adventures, being outside.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're eating the dirt, Jill, are you like making mud pies? Or are you just shoveling it in your mouth because you want to be with the earth? Or like, what does that look like?
I loved how crunchy it was. Just crunchy. So I would just like, I have memories as a child of eating dirt. It's funny because my grandma, before she passed, I was writing some letters to her and she wrote one back and she said, my favorite memory of you is eating dirt. It's like, I remember that too. And I don't know if I meant it. I think I just like that it was crunchy. I don't know. Whatever. I have a good immune system now though, so that's always positive.
Yeah, yes. I can't remember exactly what they had mentioned when my kid was a baby, that, you know, if you're eating a lot of dirt, then you need some sort of nutrient in your body to just like eat it because it's fine and it's what you need.
Yeah, so maybe that was it. I don't know. This is something. Common sense for sure.
I can see that. Like it's a whole texture thing for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was good.
Second question. As a teenager, what was your favorite place to be in?
You know what? Anywhere where my friends were. I was insanely extroverted as a teenager. That kind of switched a little bit as I became an adult. I'm more of an introvert. So now it's like my favorite place is with a book in my house with my family. But as a teenager, like I just wanted to be out with my friends, like just doing anything. We would do all the things. We'd be like singing karaoke. We'd be like, you know, chasing around in the streets at night when our family was sleeping and they didn't know I was out. You know, anywhere with my friends, just doing crazy stuff. That's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Did you have favorite things that were your go-to things to do with your friends?
Chase boys. Can that be one of them?
Yes.
Chase boys. Come up with ways to bring them over so we can like flirt with them. That was a go-to for sure. I was such a flirt. That's like, we always focused on that. That was the goal.
Yeah, because that's definitely fun. And there's a chase there. And it's always unexpected in some way. Yeah, I count that.
Yeah, the chase was the best part for sure. Yeah.
Third question, Jill. What is the oddest food combo that you've liked and tried or you've just tried?
So it's funny. My family will get a kick out of this. We did this really weird thing. We were kids. My parents, I don't even know where they came up with this idea. It's totally wacky, but we would steam artichokes, whole artichokes, the whole thing, like 3 of them. And then we would have like a family activity or whatever. And for our dessert, we would get these steamed artichokes and a giant bowl of mayo, just mayonnaise. And then we would pull the leaves off and we would dip it in the mayonnaise and then like pull off the meat part of it. And that just artichoke mayonnaise, like those two things on the and we loved it. And we were all like fighting over the artichoke heart. And it was like this weird, bizarre thing. So, and I've never eaten anything like that combination again. I don't think my kids would be into that. They'd be like, Mom, you're wacky. So that's the strangest one I can think of.
I have never done that, but I'm oddly intrigued because it's mayo. Like, I kind of feel like mayo makes things like appetizing.
Yeah. It's like just on its own and like just scoop it. It's so weird, like a chip. Like the artichoke is the chip. But like you can't even eat most of the artichoke. It's just a tiny, tiny bit. But for some reason, that combination I really love.
Okay, I'm going to give it a go. So anyone who is watching or looking at the replay that wants to give it a go, share some pictures with us and we'll send them to Jill of our artichoke dip and we'll come up with a name for it.
Okay, that would be awesome because I have no idea what it is and why we did it.
I got the scoop though, the whole scoop feel, like that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super fun.
Before we end today, Jill, can you share with our listeners and viewers what living a creatively abundant life means to you?
No, I think just finding something that gives you any like creation ability. I guess I think people have to be creative, which is why I worry a little bit about AI taking over our creative, all the things that we do creatively. If they can do it, then we won't do it anymore. I think that's going to be really, really challenging for humans because I think we need to create in our own way. I never thought, like I said before, I never thought I was creative. So for me now, it's just connecting with characters that I build in my head and being able to be connected to this magical mindset and just kind of building on this magical mindset and putting it into my life. And that makes me feel like I'm a creator. I feel like we all need to be creators in some way. And so I think just the building stories and building characters and doing that with my teenagers at school, helping them to build things and to make stuff, I think is what really gives me that creative, rich lifestyle that I find really enjoyable and just soul-filling.
We have a comment coming in for you, Jill. Heidi, hello, Heidi, says, add lemon juice to the mayo. It takes it up a notch.
Okay, I'm going to try that.
I am a little bit with the spices and the lemon, but yeah, I can see that would take it up a notch for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm going to have to try to put lemon in my mayo. I have no idea what that would taste like.
Are you going to give it a go? And I'll give it a go.
Okay, let's do it. Yes, okay. And then we'll report back to each other whether or not that was a good addition.
Thank you for your comment, Heidi. It's wonderful to have you joining us. Where can our listeners and viewers find you if they have any questions for you after the show and would like to pick up Bright Ones?
So I actually have a website now. It's jbtuckerbooks.com. And it has a link to my Amazon book. It's just on Amazon right now. I'm hoping to get into Barnes & Noble pretty soon here and then do like a book signing over at Barnes & Noble. That'd be really great. Anyway, but right now it's just on Amazon. You just have to put in, Bright Ones, JB Tucker. But then, jbtuckerbooks.com is a great way to just kind of jump on there and learn a little bit more about me and get connected with my books.
It has been such an honor and pleasure to talk with you today, Jill, and congratulations on your new release.
Thank you. So excited. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for those who've joined us live and will join us later on the replay. Remember, as you go about the rest of your week, to find the things that are working for you. You are the creator of your own story. What steps will you take next? Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful Thursday evening. Bye, Jill.
Bye. Thank you.